My name is Alex Carter, and this is my life story. You know, I was saved at an early age, at 11, and baptized, and I believed it. It was real for me. But culturally, I think what I saw is you quit going to church somewhere around when you're 18, and you really don't come back to serving the Lord until you have kids sometime when you're in your 20s and 30s. And I'd never really experienced meeting people that are in their early 20s that still serve the Lord. I got my forestry degree from University of Missouri, and I came down here for graduate school. Basically, I just still wanted to be in college. I didn't want to quit, and so I sent in an application for graduate school, and UAM was the first one that I sent an app to, and they were the first one to accept me. So this is where I came. I hadn't been to church in about 5 years, and 600 miles away from home, I didn't know anybody. So one day I walked into Pauline, and I just wanted to make a friend, and I made a lot of them. But these friends that I made, they're a lot different than any of the friends that I've ever had before. A couple years later, I got my first job in Alaska, and man, it was just a blast. I was having amazing adventures, having just the time of my life, and I was serving the Lord up there. I was going to church up there. I had a church family up there, and I would share the gospel with people up there, and I'd come down here and I'd serve at Pauline, having these adventures, and I loved it. It was a great time in my life. And then a few years into that, I just felt God calling me to do something more. I just stayed up there because I wanted to try to avoid the call that God had onto my life, and it was a bad decision. I eventually ended up moving away from the church that I was involved in up there, and just little by little, it was just a steady migration in my heart away from God's. And I started to build up a wall where I could no longer feel the Holy Spirit's conviction on my life. But at the same time, I'm having a blast. Every adventure I've ever wanted to have, I'm having it and more. It was so much fun, but this thrill seeking, it never leaves you satisfied. And it left me with this feeling of so what? And eventually, God got my attention one day. I was helping a guy move a four-wheeler through the bush, and we took this four-wheeler and we strapped it on the side of an airplane, a float plane, and which really isn't the best idea, but it's not the worst idea I've ever had either. And so we strapped this thing to the side of the airplane. You have all your weight on one side, and plus you have kind of messes with the aerodynamics of the airplane, but it's a pretty powerful plane. But what we didn't know when we took off your float plane, this float, because it has 750 pounds of four-wheeler on it, when we're taxiing, it's making the pontoon dive kind of like a crankbait just enough where water's coming in over the top hatch. And so now we got about 750 pounds of water in the float, and we have 750 pounds of airplane, and when we just shoot and take off, suddenly something's wrong. And I don't know what it is, and I can tell something's not right, but you can't turn right, because if you turn, then it's going to just go lopsided and you're going to go straight down. I see him fighting the controls, and it's just a crazy crosswind, and we get over the ocean, and I realize that something's really going wrong. And so I look down, and I thought I was in a situation I was gonna die, and I did what any normal person would do. I got my camera out, and I decided that I was gonna take a picture of this, because when they find my body, I guess they're gonna find out what happened to me. And so I did. I took that picture, and then You know, I thought really hard afterwards about my life and, you know, the choices that I've made and the choices that I could have made. And I remember we were coming down for the landing, and our nose was down so deep, and I really didn't think that nose was going to come up. I thought we were just going to go plow into this lake that we had to do an emergency landing on. And in that moment, you know, I found out who my God was, because, you know, that's what my mind went to, and what my mind said. In my heart, I just said, Jesus, I love you, and I'm sorry for the choices I made. I'm sorry that I didn't choose you. I chose myself, and I said, I'm okay with this because I know I got it coming. And we made it. You know, it wasn't the prettiest landing ever, but it was one you walk away from. I thought a lot about that moment later, and I thought a lot about the choices that I've made up to that point and the choices I could have made. That's what bothered me. It wasn't whether or not I was saved. And I got to thinking about what would have happened if I had died that day. And I'd have been able to show Jesus just a real impressive resume of all the things that I'd done for myself. I remembered a story that a pastor here told us once. He said, if you ever lose your keys, just go back to the last place you knew you had them. He said, when God lost us, He lost us at a tree. And when He came back to find us, He came back at a tree, and He was nailed to it. He died on it. And He did that in order to find us, because that was the last place He knew He had us. And so, the last thing He said was, if you ever lose your way in life, all you have to do is just go back to the last place you knew you had it. And for me, you know, I knew that was at Pauline. I didn't have a clue where I was going to work, where I was going to stay, or anything. You know, all I knew is none of that even mattered. And I've been in seminary for 1.5 years now, and I'm going to totally live out a life that's sold out for Jesus from here on out. And I was so worried that God was going to try to rewire me in some way, but it just turns out that God wanted to use me the way I'm wired. And because my life, it's just as all over the place as it ever was, but I know who my God is that I serve. And that's my story. And the only reason I wanted to tell this story was because each of us has a story that's unique. And whether you like your story or not, God's in love with it, and He wants to use your story. But He can't use your story if you won't let Him.